Hi everybody, this is Denise from Foursquare Microfarm. Okay, I just want to apologize in advance. This particular video, instead of being an actual complete process video, is going to be a really weird mishmash of two different projects because, well, sometimes I get a little busy. One of the reasons why I don't make a lot of weaving podcasts, weaving videos, is I find that because the process takes so long, weaving from handspun, it's usually not the one thing I'm doing. It's several things. I'm always doing several projects. And so a lot of times I will start a weaving video, which starts with me processing the fiber and spinning it. And in the meantime, I'm doing about 10 other things. And by the time I actually get to the point where I'm weaving, weeks could have gone by, or maybe longer, depending on what other project I have on the side. And so I'm like, where is this mysterious video that I started? Or I kind of forget that I even started a video on the project. So what I wind up with is a video that will start me off somewhere, and then all of a sudden the project is done, and it's given to somebody or whatever I've done with it, and I don't have in-between videos. Okay, so right now I'm going to start the video for the white alpaca I was spinning way back with Tort Fleece, and probably even before that I got from Sandy Lincoln. And that must have been like maybe May, might have been before that, March, April, May. And I had decided to use it for a prayer shawl. That's where we'll pick up. A long time has passed since I started spinning this white alpaca. And originally when I started the video, I was spinning up quite a bit of it. And I showed you the weaving plan. And the goal was to make some yardage to make a skirt. But unfortunately, recently I had a death in the family. And so I decided to take the yarn and turn it into a prayer shawl. So I'm about halfway done here on the Harrisville 22-inch, and you know, when you have pictures of someone dressing the loom, it just kind of looks like it's all over the place, and it's a little insane. And it takes so long, the process. I started yesterday at about this time, so I was at the loom continuously, probably at least 3.5 hours straight the first time that I had lunch. I actually had the chance to cut the backyard, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then I was back at the loom, so pretty much that was 12 hours minus the time for backyard work, which maybe an hour, so maybe 8 hours at the loom, you know, tying it on and then winding the warp, and now I'm threading and slaying the reed at the same time. So most of the work for weaving is actually dressing the loom, preparing it for the actual weaving. Once I get the loom dressed, the weaving will go fairly fast. So this is a prayer shawl, and it looks kind of plain at the moment. It's just basic white and the blue stripes. And if you're familiar with Jewish prayer shawls, a lot of the traditional ones tend to be white or ivory, and they have the blue or black stripes through them. And so this one is symbolically a bit more like the traditional Jewish one. If you see my previous video from the year before, I made a prayer shawl for a wonderful lady at church, and it was gray and black, and it was different. But this one is going to be a bit more in the style of traditional Jewish prayer shawls, and so it's just going to be white and the blue. And I may add 1 or 2 color stripes just as a personal touch or statement. We'll see how that goes. But I should start weaving in another couple hours. And I'll get back to you then. Hello everybody. Welcome. This is Denise from Foursquare Micro Farm, and I am going to start weaving with the dyed yarn, the thick and thin that I made a couple of videos ago. And at first I was going to use a cotton warp, but I have this Cheviot that's just been kind of hanging around on the warping board that I hadn't decided what I was going to do with it. And so I'm going to go ahead and over dye it brown and use this for the warp. And go ahead and stick it in the crock pot, get it all set, and I'll have it dry and ready to warp in just a little while. Here we go. Hopefully the background is not quite too shiny. So this is what the Cheviot looked like after I dyed it. And I realized my hands are like white. I've been powdering with diatomaceous earth, but that's a whole other story. Okay, so anyway, this is what the Cheviot looked like after it was over dyed. And I think it turned out pretty nice. It's a very deep, dark brown with a little variation. And variation is always good. And so I warped it onto the Samplet, the Ashford Samplet rigid heddle loom, and that was 60 ends on that one. That's an 8 dent reed, I believe. And this is just a plain weave, and I kind of messed up. I hadn't really thought about it. Is I was supposed to do a header in the brown Cheviot, and then at the end do the brown Cheviot, but I forgot. So that's okay. This is okay. And eventually, at some point, I don't generally twist my fringe. I don't like it twisted. But I might knot it in the 3 strands like this, knot them together. If I feel like it. We'll see how that goes. If I like it, I'll do a few of them and test it out. And so this is still waiting to be wet finished. It'll tighten up even more, but I think it turned out pretty nice. And when I was first weaving it, I was like, I don't really like this because it was dark, and I tend to like dark, but it seemed almost to me like it was so dark that it took away from the color of the yarn, which I didn't want it to do. But when it got finished, actually I like it just fine. And so I had plenty of yarn left over from the skein, and I made a matching hat. And this wasn't from any particular pattern. It's just a freehand hat. It's a mix between candy corn and fall leaves. I love candy corn. I love fall leaves. So pretty much this worked out fine for me. And at first I wanted a slouchy hat, but then I decided on something a little different. So it's not quite slouchy. It's way more than beanie. It's something very much in between. And what's really important is the contrast between what happens with textured yarn in weaving and what happens in textured yarn knitting. You can really see the bobbles and the thick and thin texture in this knitted piece, whereas in the woven piece, you see them, but they're a lot more tame, and the color is more subdued because I picked a darker warp. If I had picked a lighter warp, if I'd warped it with white, this really would have been a totally different piece. And maybe I'll do that for a video. I'll have the same warp, same weft, and I'll change the warp on you so you can get an idea of what it looks like when you change that one basic element, how it controls, either mutes or accentuates the color of the weft. So if you have a really, really bright weft and you're like, I'm not really sure about using this, wearing this, what have you, you choose a dark warp and it will kind of mute that color. And if you have a weft you'd like to moisture or accentuate, if I'm using the correct terminology, use a light warp and it will really, really pop. Okay, all that from that blue Cheviot that wasn't completely dyed over, and re-dyeing it, over-dyeing it, really turned it into something that I could use in the project. Okay, that's it for warping for the last, warping and weaving for the last probably 3.5 weeks to a month. And I'm going to start spinning again because I am going to make that yardage for the skirt before Christmas happens. So I'll be back at the wheel for that. Though I do have some fin already spun up, so maybe I'll use that instead. All right, anyway, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button and the little bell for notifications. And if you like the video, put a thumbs up on there. If you have any questions or comments, feel free always to go ahead and add them in the comments section, and I'll be more than happy to chat with you. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram. Yes, I am still doing my blog on Blogger, and pictures on Pinterest. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day.